So this is what we're using now as our testing laboratory. You can see it's rudimentary, largely based upon the availability of materials. Aprovecho had asked for a list of places where you can buy calibration gases. Honduras, you cannot.
Yes.
And so we're going to be having to look for some place like from Mexico. Where's Victor? To see if we can't get the calibration gases. We get models of stoves from throughout Latin America. This has an oven. This is Honduran. This is an industrial stove for making and selling tortillas. These two models are from Mexico. And in addition to giving them the results of the evaluation, we also make our comments. This model, for example, has a serious problem with the plancha bubbling. When it heats up, the plancha will bubble up like this, which means if you are using it for cooking on pots, maybe you have a 30% contact between the plancha and your pot. The other thing that I'm hoping that we talk about this week, and we touched on it briefly with the parking lot, was the idea of making sure that we're feeding stoves the same way, for example, to try and eliminate that variability. But I can tell you with these models here, just these three, we cannot feed them the same way and expect them to do the same task. This first stove, we can use the way that Aprovecho discussed using it with the parallel sticks, 4 to 5 sticks parallel, ½ inch apart. But if we do that same with this stove, Flores spends 2 hours and 45 minutes trying to make water boil, because it will not boil water using that feeding method. And part of it, I think, has to do with the design of the combustion chamber, but the other, and this is going to sound really bad, has to do with the grate and the amount of second or primary oxygen that's available. And so we've had this discussion with Rainey, with Jim, during the plancha protocol meeting. How much are we going to coddle the model? I mean, how much do we have to really try and feed that stove in order to optimize performance? And how are we going to do that? Or should we do that? Because if we don't do that, there are going to be some stove models that cannot complete the task. For example, this model here. Okay.
What are the numbers?
These numbers are for the safety protocol. For surface temperatures, what you do is go through and separate it up into grids and then measure the temperature in each one of those quadrants in order to identify where is the hottest portion of this stove. Okay? These stoves really heat up a lot. It's almost unbearable for the user. Okay? Whereas some of the other models that you'll see with Ingenita Flores are made out of brick or blocks and are much more user-friendly, I guess, unless you want the stove to heat the house. And so if you want the stove to heat the house as well, this could be a good option. We've also, this is a brand new model from EnviroFit that has modified the combustion chamber. Okay, the combustion chamber, Larry Winiarski's combustion chamber, is this L-shaped combustion chamber. And what EnviroFit has done is modified it so it's more like a funnel with a heavy cast iron plancha or griddle.
And it works?
It works. We haven't, I mean, it boils water. We haven't done, we just got this in mid-October and haven't had the chance to do any evaluations because we were kind of preparing for this week.
What's the cost difference compared to a traditional?
They haven't given us a cost for this stove because it's not yet up to production. Right now they're just producing 50, 100, and they still haven't really rolled out the factory production. Probably about $200.
The difference?
This will probably cost around $200. One of these costs $100.
And why this particular type of chimney?
Top of the chimney.
I think it's for two purposes. One obviously is so that the rain doesn't come into the chimney. And so usually you use a hat or something like that to prevent the rain. But you can see that this will do the same purpose because the rain will just drip down through here so it won't enter the chimney. But this model is also being promoted by the now future president of Honduras. And so I think that they wanted to have something that they could identify outside of the house as being their stove model. And his name is Juan Orlando Hernandez. And it's interesting that this makes an H. Okay? And so I don't know if that was intentional or not, but makes you go, Good. Stands for, yes, of course. This is an oven for making bread or pizzas or chicken from Salvador, where the hot gases come up through these two chambers, and there are baffles here on the interior which distribute that heat evenly through the oven. It heats up really well, really quickly. Maintenance is a problem, because if that space, those baffles become covered with creosote, then you have to take off these screws, and it's really tough to clean in between those two. This is I don't know if you know Nancy Hughes. This is the stove team model that can either have a plancha stove, or you can remove this and have direct flame with a skirt. These are produced in a factory. Even though these models that you see here are all factory produced, we still make them bring in 3 stove models, or 3 stoves of that model, because there are differences in the construction even though they are factory built. Here we've done some work on microgasification, including prototypes like this. One of the concerns about the microgasification is the fact that it's a batch stove. You fill it, light it. When it burns out, you have to clean it out and relight it. And so this was a protocol that was developed during the second stove camp that we had in Spanish, where we have 2 combustion chambers. This one is lit, used for cooking. When it runs out, light this combustion chamber, push it over and continue cooking, while you then empty this combustion chamber out and refill it. So looking at options to make it more user-friendly for Latin America. I had a 4th-year student from Colombia who was working on microgasification with the plancha stove or the metal plate, but Zamorano is really strict in terms of discipline, since it is a on-campus facility, a resident facility. All the students live here, and so we have a very strict disciplinary code. And if you get 15 demerits, you get kicked out. And he wasn't a very good kid, so he was relieved of his academic obligations. And then here we have our LEMS, which is just set up tentatively for this week. The new laboratory will be built out in front, tall enough that we will be able to accommodate chimney stoves. Right now we have to put the chimney stoves down very low so that we still have the clearance between the top of the chimney and the intake for the exhaust collections. And so the building will be taller. So this whole thing will be taller. It'll have to come down. Mike, where's Mike?
Yes, sir.
We're going to need a whole bunch more of these pipes, these ducts, because we can't find them here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well, we can get them for you.
Okay. So it's just set up for this week to maybe talk about calibration and for you guys to help share your experiences with us to make sure that we get the best we can. Okay. And everybody knows the PEMs and the LEMS. This isn't the LEMS. That's the LEMS. This is one of Ryan's. That we're going to be talking about this in detail tomorrow morning.
The safety protocol that you use with the grid marked off, is that a protocol that you designed?
No,
or is
it's in the Nathan's. Nathan Johnson's. Yeah, it's in his. And you get people who, this stove, I'm sorry to pick on the stove so much,
We did that too.
but they made the protector for the chimney, but sent it the instructions to put it on like it's put on, which is backwards, because the chimney is exposed to the user. And I sent him an email saying, "Are you sure this is the way you want it?" It said, "Follow the instructions on the."
Were they
in the
worried
manual."
about kids walking around the back and running into it?
And that'll be against the wall.
Yeah.
And so when we sent the report in to them, that became obvious that that's an issue and something that they need to correct. There are other models that we don't have here that have a protector, but it's like 2 inches between the metal bars. And so it's easy for somebody to have contact with the stove. So no, we do the safety protocol according to Nathan's revised thesis.
But of the labs that I've seen, very few of them actually, like, you come in here and it's clear there are markings all over the place.
Yeah,
You're doing the grid for the safety testing, but it's uncommon to see.
you can see the wall over there is marked with the grids as well. That's for evaluating the potential for that stove heating up the wall and catching the house on fire.
Because I've been in UL labs and seen the same, you know, markings and everything, so that's the way to do it. That's good.
Questions, comments, complaints?
You're using PIMS to do the testing for this?
Right now, we're using the PEMS. And then once we have the new building constructed, which supposedly is going to start the 1st of January, then we'll be using what we're going to do is have the LEMS hooked up, and then above it have the PEMS hooked up. So that when we're doing the exposure measurements, we'll still be able to run the PEMS to get the total emissions measurements, just to be able to have a check and balance to make sure that the results are coming out similarly. Yeah. So that we can identify if there's any problems with user or fuels or what have you.
If you had 2 systems like that, then you could cut your number of tests in half.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 boxes on it, yeah.
Yeah.
But you need 2 grabs and 2.
Just 2 of everything, so another $30,000.
Well, the scale needs to be shared.
Oh,
Few bucks.
New computer.
Yeah.
Since when do you have, or do you use the PEMS?
Yes.
Since when?
2009. And Aprovecho is now telling us that it's very old, that we should consider replacing it. But they won't buy back the old model.
There.
You should, I think.
Oh, we will.
Just
$5.
exchange it.
Yeah.
For the new one.
Tim, that insulation is mainly because of the door there.
Yeah.
People don't touch.
Yep.
Just speak that we are looking to a panel upgrade possibility, but it's a work in progress.
So tomorrow morning we will be all here. We'll be separated out into 3 stations. And so in those 3 stations we'll be talking about field measurements, talking about user preferences, and then we have a couple of ladies from the community who are come down and do a CCT and cook our lunch.
Are you going to set up the LEMS in here, or are you going to wait until you have the new?
We're going to wait until we have the new one. Because it just, we have height problems with this,
Yeah.
and this is going to give us a 2.5 foot more height problem.
Yeah, although you could reconfigure.
Yeah. But we're talking supposedly a month of construction,
Yeah.
and so,
Worth waiting.
yeah.
Did you check what kind of temperatures are there in the exhaust?
The duct, the blower takes the majority of the heat. That's why I'm really pleased that Aprovecho put the blower on the end of it now, because we've had 2 problems with this blower. One is that the fans have melted or begun to melt, and the other is it really gets clogged up with soot quickly, and so we have to clean that pretty frequently. Okay. Well, if there's nothing else, let's go outside and switch groups.